sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning?
Hi, I'm Paul Bennett in Millbridge, Maine. We're located along Maine's Bold Coast, not very far from the U.S.-Canadian border. And this week, I continue with my 18-foot sailboat build. Right now, I'm going to get ready to rip down some stringers. These are just standard 2x4s. These are 8-foot long 2x4s, and I'm going to see if I can get some longer ones. The longest they come in is about 16 feet. I have to rip them down and make the stringers, the chine logs, the shear clamps. I'm going to have to scarf them together because they just don't make these long enough for what I need. The scarf joint will be, it's basically just an angle you cut on the end, on each end, and put them together at a ratio of typically 8:1. And where these will be 3/4 of an inch thick, it looks like the scarf joint will be about 6 inches long on each end. And I'll put them together with some epoxy resin. Now the reason why I'm cutting them down from these 2x4s, because they have to be 3/4 of an inch by 2 inches. I could buy pine boards pretty close to that size. But the problem is the pine is much more expensive than 2x4 building studs. Here in the Northeast, at least here in Maine, these studs are made from spruce, which happen to be stronger than pine. Pine's very soft. That's why I'm cutting these down. So much cheaper and stronger. Actually a little bit lighter too. As you can see, this is just a very simple jig. Here's the angle that I wanted. Plywood, parallel lines, the width of where the table saw is. Just sticking a piece on there, having it stick out beyond to where the blade is, and running it through. So you end up with something like this like that. And it just cuts, this is what you get, the end that cuts off. So it's pretty simple. And this is just an extra, this top piece is an extra piece of wood just to make it a little bit taller, give it like a fence for the stringer to, just to rest up against. And I don't clamp it or anything, I just hold it in place. If I were going to clamp it down, I'd have to make this a lot longer. I'm going to see if it works. And if it does, that'll save me a lot of time later. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. I think maybe I clean it up with a block plane. It just saves a whole lot of time. Let's see how this one comes out. This one I think came out a little bit better than the first one. I think you just have to, this is kind of hokey, it's not the best, but it was just quick, simple. Let's see how this works. Let's see how that looks. It's not perfect, but I think that's going to work. Yep, it's all glued together and it sets up. What I'm doing here is I'm putting a little bit of wax paper underneath that piece. I needed a place that was reasonably flat. It's not the ideal location. It might even rain today, I hope not. I'm going to temporarily screw this down so it doesn't shift around on me. That's all I need. What's going on here? Decided not to use the epoxy. It's kind of cold out today and the epoxy would not set up a cure. It's just too cold for that. It would not get a good bond. I'm using the Tight Bond 3. This is inside the boat. It's not submerged below the water line, constantly in water. So it should be just fine. Put glue on both sides. I'm going to line this up as best I can. It doesn't look too bad. I'll make any adjustments I need to make right now before that glue starts to set up. Now if I put a screw through here now, I will be using the screws as clamps. But if I put a screw through there now, it's just going to slide on me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go further back and I'm going to put a screw through the stringer into that wood underneath. Now it's not going to squirm around on me. Put a couple of screws in. Now I'm going to put these screws in, and they're just temporary. They're going to come out again once the glue sets up, and these are just temporary clamps. That's all I'm using it for. When that glue sets up, I'll just undo it. I'll just undo the screws, and then I can bring the stringer back into the shop. It's going to have to sit for a while. I hope it warms up a little if I let that cure. It's not going to cure very well in the colder temperatures. It takes longer. It's in the 50s right now. We're going to call that good. Just let it sit there and set up. In the video, you just watched me make up the first scarf joint, and I used the Tight Bond 3 glue. It was in the 50s. That's pretty much minimum. I think around 55 degrees you can use that stuff in order for it to cure. It took quite a while before it cured fully, but then during the week I was able to, I got more wood. I had run out of wood, that's why I only made that first one. Got a bunch of 2x3s instead of 2x4s because that still allowed me to make the 1x2 stringers. It was cheaper, cost me less money to buy those, simply because they were available. Same lumber, I mean the same species of wood and all that. But the temperatures have not been very conducive to using these glues, adhesives. That's why I haven't been using the epoxies. So when I made all the rest of the scarf joints for the stringers, and you saw the picture of them all laid out, I switched to this Gorilla brand, the people that make Gorilla Glue. This is a Gorilla heavy duty construction adhesive is what it's called. It's non-expanding, it doesn't foam up like Gorilla Glue does. Put it in a caulking gun, squeeze it on there, it comes out as like a thick paste, just like a lot of other construction adhesives. It starts bonding within 30 seconds. It starts to bond within 30 seconds. And it'll start sticking and holding. And of course it takes longer for that to cure, but you can use it in all weather and it fills gaps. You can use this down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's why I used it. This is not really all that expensive when you compare it to the 3M products or the Sika Plot products. You know, you can find this stuff everywhere. Unfortunately, I didn't get to install the stringers. I didn't really get to work on the framework of the boat this week because we had a lot of rain, a lot of cold temperatures. So I'm hoping this in the coming week I'll be able to get to that. I'll take a close-up photo of this. I decided to add a bonus. I had an open window where I could do some work. Actually, I did most of it right here in the shop. I wasn't outside. At the stern, I decided to add a watertight collision bulkhead. Everything inside the cabin is separate from that little stern lazarette area, because aft of this bulkhead will be the lazarette, and so any water that gets in there won't get into the cabin. It wasn't that much to do. I just took some dimensions out of CAD for my drawings. I laid out the lines on a piece of plywood. I didn't really film that because you saw me do the forward collision bulkhead in an earlier video. And it was really just a repeat. The only difference was it would be in the dimensions, different sizes. But other than that, it was the same procedure. I did shoot a little video of cutting it out and then adding the cleat that I put on there to help hold it in position when I put it on the jig.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor?